The United States and China intensify global power and technology rivalry. The world seems to be revolving around two powers once again. It is no longer the old rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, marked by tanks, warheads, and ideologies. Now, the rivalry is subtler, more complex, and infinitely more global. On one side are the United States, the superpower that has led the world order for more than 7 decades. On the other is China, the emerging force that, in a few decades, transformed from an agricultural nation into a global technological and economic power. This tension, although not officially declared, is what many experts already call the new Cold War, a war of influence, technology, economy, and narrative. The rivalry between Washington and Beijing did not begin yesterday. It is the result of decades of silent competition that intensified with globalization, the rise of the internet, and the power of technological innovation. What once seemed a simple trade rivalry now manifests in practically every sector, from artificial intelligence to the space race, from control of maritime routes to the conquest of strategic markets in Africa and Latin America. The new face of global power is being shaped before our eyes. In the epicenter of this transformation lies in the increasingly tense relationship between the two largest economies on the planet. It all began to take shape in the early 2000s, when China joined the World Trade Organization. This move allowed the country to integrate deeply into global production chains, offering cheap labor, growing infrastructure, and aggressive export incentive policies. While the industrialized world sought to reduce costs, China offered what no one else could: scale efficiency. In a few years, the country became the factory of the planet. Western brands, from electronics to clothing, became heavily dependent on the Chinese market. For a while, it seemed like a mutually beneficial relationship. The United States obtained cheaper products, American companies profited from production in Asia, and China grew rapidly, reducing poverty and consolidating its role as an emerging power. But behind the appearance of balance, something deeper was happening. China began investing heavily in research and development, science, defense, and, above all, cutting-edge technology. The country ceased to be just an assembly center and started developing its own innovations. Companies like Huawei, Tencent, Alibaba, and BYD emerged as symbols of a new era of Chinese technological prominence. It was then that the United States realized the landscape was changing. American dominance in areas such as semiconductors, telecommunications, and artificial intelligence began to be threatened. Huawei, for example, advanced rapidly in 5G technology leadership, which could place China in command of future global communication networks. In Washington, the alarm sounded. What was at stake was not just the economy, but technological hegemony itself, by extension, global political and military power. With it, the rivalry ceased to be commercial and became strategic. The United States began adopting a series of measures to contain Chinese advancement: export restrictions on high-performance chips, sanctions against Chinese companies, and even attempts to persuade European and Asian allies not to adopt Chinese technologies became frequent policies. The White House saw China's growth not merely as an economic challenge but as a direct threat to national security. Beijing, in turn, responded with its own strategy. Under Xi Jinping's leadership, China adopted a formal, nationalist, e assertive stance. The Made in China 2025 plan became a symbol of this new phase, an ambitious initiative to make the country self-sufficient in key areas, such as robotics, electric vehicles, clean energy, and microchips. The message was clear: China no longer wanted to depend on the West, it wanted to lead. This transition had impacts far beyond the borders of the two countries. The rivalry between Washington and Beijing began to divide the world into spheres of influence. Countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America started being courted by both powers, each offering distinct advantages. The United States, with its traditional discourse of freedom, democracy, and historical alliances. China, with multi-billion-dollar infrastructure investments, accessible loans, and the promise of a new multipolar order, more balanced and less dominated by the West. Meanwhile, the technological field became the main stage of this battle. Semiconductors, tiny components that power everything from smartphones, till missiles became the gold of the 21st Street century. Whoever controls the production, a distribution of these chips will control the future of global technology. That is why Taiwan, home to TSMC, the world's largest chip manufacturer, has become the most sensitive point on the planet. The United States is aware of this, and so is China. Washington tries to protect Taiwan while simultaneously strengthening its own chip industry, with giants like Intel and Nvidia. Beijing, on the other hand, invests massively developing its own production capacity, seeking to circumvent American sanctions. Each is a game of patience, strategy, and power, and neither side seems willing to back though. As technological tension rises, the world watches apprehensively. Economies are interconnected. Any significant rupture in this relationship can have devastating effects. Multinational companies face dilemmas: continue relying on Chinese production and risk sanctions, or relocate their factories to other countries, increasing costs and reducing competitiveness. The so-called decoupling has become a constant topic in global debates, but perhaps the most fascinating yet the same dangerous aspect of this new rivalry is that each takes place in a world far more connected than that of the original Cold War. Today, information circulates instantly, and global public opinion influences political and economic decisions. Narrative has become a powerful weapon. Both the U.S. and China know this. Washington tries to maintain its image as the leader of the free world, defender of democracy and transparency. Beijing, meanwhile, promotes the idea that the West is in decline, while Asia rises with an alternative model of stability and progress. This narrative is fought not only in newspapers and governments but also on social media, in films, universities, and even algorithms that determine what people see and like. What was once a trade rivalry is now a total battle for technological dominance, political influence, and the shaping of ideas. In the outcome of this competition could define the coming decades of the modern world. But what is really at stake? What makes this rivalry so central to humanity's fate? And, most importantly, is it possible to prevent this competition from escalating into a direct conflict? These are the questions hanging over decision-making rooms in Washington, Beijing, and capitals around the world. And as the two giants move on the global chessboard, the rest of the planet holds its breath, trying to understand how far this dispute can go, and what will remain when the dust settles. The U.S. China rivalry is not limited to billion-dollar figures or trade agreements. Each manifests in three fundamental axes that shape 21st Street century global power: technology, economy, and military power. Each of these fields is an arena of intense competition, where strategic decisions, monumental investments, and aggressive policies determine who will have the capacity to set the rules of the international game in the coming decades. And although these areas are distinct, they are deeply interconnected, forming a complex mosaic of influence that affects governments, companies, and citizens on all continents. In the technological field, the race is visibly fierce and strategic. Technology is no longer just a convenience tool. It has become the core of national power. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, 5G networks, semiconductors, electric vehicles, clean energy, biotechnology, and space exploration are the most critical fronts of this silent battle. Each innovation represents not only a scientific advance but also a geopolitical advantage, capable of shifting the global balance of power. Whoever dominates these technologies will control information, economic flows, and potentially deterrent military capacity. Artificial intelligence, for example, is not just a laboratory topic. It defines everything from surveillance systems, military strategies, and logistics to automated economic decisions in stock markets and global banks. Beijing invests heavily to become a world leader in AI, using not only its capital and infrastructure, but also its population as a large-scale testing ground, something impossible to replicate in Western democracies. Washington, on the other hand, focuses efforts on maintaining its supremacy in software, advanced algorithms, and patents, as well as strengthening strategic alliances with European and Asian countries to create favorable global technology standards. Each Chinese or American advancement is observed, evaluated, and quickly countered by the other side, turning technology into a battlefield without bullets, but with real global consequences. Semiconductors represent another crucial battle. These small chips are at the heart of virtually all modern technology, from smartphones to guided missiles, from cloud servers to electric cars. Global dependence on Taiwan, where TSMC produces cutting-edge chips, is a constant point of tension. Washington seeks to ensure these vital components remain accessible to allies and that China cannot monopolize high-performance chip production. Beijing, aware of this vulnerability, invests billions in developing its own semiconductor industry, seeking to reduce dependence on external suppliers and create a self-sufficient technological chain. The race is not only economic but strategic. Each chip produced or withheld can turn into a political or military advantage. In the economic field, the rivalry is equally complex and multifaceted. Globalization created an interdependence that no one can ignore. International trade, foreign investment, production chains, and capital flows have transformed the world economy into an intricate system where one anti-S action reverberates across the planet. In this context, China has established itself as an essential hub. In addition to being a giant consumer market, the country has become a supplier and investor in almost every continent, especially in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. The Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), or New Silk Road, is an emblematic example. Through investments in infrastructure, ports, railways, and energy, Beijing expands its political and economic influence, creating dependence, and strategic ties with nations previously outside the global power radar. The United States responds with its own economic strategy. Beyond sanctions and trade restrictions, Washington seeks to strengthen alliances, promote investments in infrastructure and technology in strategic countries, and create trade agreements that limit China's expansion. The goal is clear: contain Beijing's advance without completely breaking global chains, preventing interdependence from turning into vulnerability. American economic policy also focuses on leading global innovation, ensuring that cutting-edge companies and technologies remain under Western influence. It is a delicate balance, as any hasty move can generate financial crises or disruptions in world trade. Military power, in turn, is the third pillar of this rivalry, and perhaps the most tangible, though often invisible. The United States maintains the largest military force on the planet, with strategic presence on all continents, consolidated alliances, advanced weapons and missile defense technology, and experience in projecting global power. China, on the other hand, has rapidly modernized its armed forces, investing in cutting-edge military technology, cyber defense, ballistic missile capability, and naval expansion. The South China Sea has become the epicenter of this tension, with territorial disputes, military exercises, and the construction of fortified artificial islands, challenging the international order led by the U.S. The Taiwan issue further intensifies this tension. For the United States, defending the island is part of its regional security strategy in maintaining credibility as an ally. For China, Taiwan is a matter of national sovereignty and political prestige. The presence of American troops in the region, strategic allies, joint exercises, and arms sales to Taiwan serve as clear deterrent signals, while Beijing responds with military exercises, diplomatic threats, in preparation for any eventuality. The combination of military capacity, strategic alliances, and cutting-edge technology turns each political decision into a calculated risk board, where mistakes can escalate into open conflict. Beyond these three axes, there is also a less visible but equally critical dimension: global influence through soft power and narrative. The competition is not only for factories, ships, or missiles. It is also for hearts and minds. Washington projects an image of defender of freedom, democracy, and transparency. Beijing, in turn, offers an alternative model of growth and stability, based on centralized planning, massive infrastructure investment, and social control. This narrative battle is fought in international forums, global media, universities, in social networks, shaping perceptions and alignments of entire countries. The story of who is a leader, who is innovative, and who represents the future is being told simultaneously on thousands of platforms, influencing governments, companies, and global public opinion. It is in this context that the world finds itself, a competition without clear boundaries, mixing technology, economy, military force, in global narrative. And unlike the Cold War of the 20th century, there are no fixed ideological blocks, but complex networks of interests, alliances, and interdependencies. Every move, every innovation, every investment is calculated not only for immediate gains but to shape long-term strategic position. The new Cold War is silent but powerful, and the tension reflects everything, from trade negotiations till diplomatic disputes, scientific advances, and military exercises in sensitive regions. Meanwhile, multinational companies and governments of smaller countries face complex dilemmas. Continuing to depend on China may mean access to competitive costs but also exposure to geopolitical risks. Aligning strongly with the United States may ensure military and technological protection but create trade barriers and limit growth opportunities. The globalized world has become a chessboard where each piece moves cautiously, aware that a miscalculated move can have immediate economic and political consequences. In this scenario, ordinary citizens also feel the effects. Product prices, technology availability, jobs, and investment opportunities are impacted by decisions made thousands of kilometers away. In government offices, in corporate headquarters, what once seemed distant and abstract, a rivalry between two superpowers, now touches the lives of millions globally. The U.S.-China rivalry, therefore, is not just a bilateral issue. It defines trends of power, technology, and economy that will affect all of humanity. Each technological advancement, each economic investment, each military move is observed and evaluated by the other side, creating a continuous cycle of action and reaction that turns the planet into a stage of permanent strategic tension. The world watches, attentive, as the new global order is written before our eyes, with Washington and Beijing as undisputed protagonists. And the question that remains is, how far can this rivalry go, and who will truly emerge victorious? Stay informed with GeoPulse and join the conversation. Subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters. The United States and China intensify global power and technology rivalry.